What happens when a golf course owner puts on a sun visor and khakis to carry someone else's bag and ends up seeing the ugliest side of his own business? Harrison McCaffey never planned to run the family chain of golf resorts. His father had built all 13 locations from scratch, but after his sudden stroke last year, Harrison stepped in. He had a sharp mind for numbers, but golf was his dad's world, not his, and lately that world had started to crack. The district manager flagged the West Pines location just outside of Sacramento as concerning. Revenue was dipping, membership renewals were down, and the most recent customer reviews were brutal. Harrison had read phrases like rude staff, unwelcoming, and disrespectful to seniors. But the course manager, Vince, kept brushing it all off as whiny retirees and kids who can't afford a tee time. Harrison didn't like secondhand stories. So he showed up at West Pines on a windy Thursday morning. He wore a beat-up Titleist cap, thick sunglasses, and a fake mustache that itched like hell. His clothes were cheap and wrinkled, and he had a made-up backstory about being a new part-time caddy named Harvey. Corporate HQ had never sent his photo around, and Vince had never met him before. None of them had, really. Harrison had always stayed behind the scenes. He checked in with the assistant manager, a soft-spoken woman named Adrian Sutton. She handed him a caddy bib and said, "You'll be walking with a Mr. Carter, 9:10 tee time. Just follow his lead." "What's he like?" Harrison asked, adjusting his grip on the strap. Adrian looked toward the lot. "Quiet guy. Comes here almost every day. Vietnam vet, I think. Kind of a regular." Out on the green, the sun was already high. Mr. Carter arrived right on time, mid-70s, tall, lean, with a silver beard and a slow, confident walk. He gave Harrison a nod but didn't say much. They started on hole 1. The man's game was sharp. Smooth swings, clean putts. He didn't rush and he didn't talk unless it mattered. After a few holes, Harrison admired the calm in him. It was clear Carter wasn't here for competition. This was his piece, but peace didn't last long. By hole 5, Vince walked up from a cart, chewing gum and eyeing them both. "What the hell, Carter?" he barked. "Didn't we already talk about you bringing your own caddy?" Carter straightened. "This one's with the course." Adrian set it up. "Yeah, well, we're short-staffed and you're not priority. You play here every day and tip like garbage. We got guys dropping $200 for a round and you're clogging up the fairway." Harrison felt his gut twist. Carter didn't respond, he just turned back to his ball. "You hear me," Vince said, stepping closer. "If you're not gonna pay like a real member, don't expect special treatment." "Special treatment," Carter said calmly. "I've been golfing here since '93. And the place is going downhill because we got too many charity cases hanging around," Vince snapped. "I'll talk to Adrian. You're off the caddy list." Harrison couldn't believe it. He kept his head down, pretending to adjust the bag, but his blood was boiling. Vince walked off, muttering something about cutting costs. "Sorry you had to see that," Carter said quietly. "You get treated like that often?" Harrison asked. Carter looked out at the trees. "Only since the new manager came in. Don't matter. I come out here for the quiet, not the people." They played the back 9 in silence. After the round, Carter patted Harrison's shoulder. "You did good, kid. Thanks for walking with me." Harrison nodded, feeling the weight of what he'd just seen. He watched Carter walk toward the lot, slow and steady. A man who'd survived war, now being bullied on a golf course he helped keep alive through the years. Back inside, Harrison found Adrian near the front desk. "That happen often?" he asked her, low voice. She hesitated. "Vince doesn't like regulars who don't spend big. Mr. Carter's one of a few he's been pushing out." "Why hasn't anyone reported it?" "Some have. But the last guy who complained got his membership lost in the system. Then Vince gave his slot to a new guest paying triple." Harrison glanced toward the manager's office. He'd seen enough, but he wasn't ready for the reveal yet. Not until he understood the full picture. Not until he saw who else Vince had stepped on. "Put me on more shifts," Harrison said. "I'll caddy for whoever needs it." Adrian looked surprised but nodded. "All right, we're short anyway, you sure?" "Yeah," he said. "I've got time." Saturday morning came with a dense fog hanging over the greens, muting the sunrise and softening the edges of the West Pines course. Harrison arrived early again. still in disguise, blending in with the small crew of Caddies and grounds staff prepping for the weekend crowd. He kept his eyes and ears open, taking mental notes. Adrian handed him the day's assignment without much preamble. You've got a double today. First, you're with the Collier Group father and son duo. After that, there's a junior tournament. You'll be walking with a girl named Lacey. She's 13, talented, real focused. He nodded, slinging the strap over his shoulder. Got it. How's your morning going? She paused, then leaned slightly closer. Vince pulled 2 card attendants to cover front desk. Said it's more important to look polished than to actually run on time. Who's covering the carts? Me and Lewis when we can. It's a mess. Harrison didn't press. He just filed the detail away, then he headed out to hole 1. The Colliers were an odd pair. The father, Greg, barked instructions at his teenage son between swings, correcting every movement like a drill sergeant. The boy, maybe 15, kept his eyes down and barely spoke. Harrison kept pace, offering yardage when asked, but mostly stayed quiet. By the 5th hole, Greg's frustration was boiling over. Keep your damn head down, Ryan. You're slicing it because you're watching the club, not the ball. Ryan adjusted his grip silently and tried again. The shot wasn't perfect, but it was clean. Better, Greg muttered, then turned to Harrison. You ever seen worse form than that? Harrison's jaw tightened. He's young, he'll develop, Greg scoffed. Not if he keeps swinging like a scared cat. I pay good money for these rounds. He should be learning something. At hole 7, Ryan landed a decent drive off the tee, finally cracking a small smile. But before he could reach his ball, a cart came speeding across the fairway. It skidded slightly before stopping, and Vince stepped out, slamming the brake. Collier, he shouted, you're 6 minutes behind. You're holding up 2 high-spending foursomes. Greg waved him off. We're moving fine. It's just the 2 of us. You're not moving fine, Vince snapped. This isn't a practice round. Either play ready golf or skip a hole. We don't have time to babysit amateurs. Harrison kept his eyes low, but his pulse ticked up. Ryan was visibly rattled, his hands trembling as he stepped back. Greg stepped toward Vince. You want me to report this? I've been golfing here for over a decade. Then you should know better, Vince shot back. Move it along. Vince turned before anyone could answer and drove off. Ryan didn't speak again for the rest of the round. After they finished, Harrison helped the boy load the clubs into their SUV. Greg handed him a $10 bill without looking at him. Ryan muttered a quiet thank you before climbing in. Back inside, Harrison found Adrian crouched behind the counter, restocking scorecards. Her sleeves were rolled up, and her hair was tied back with a pencil jammed behind one ear. Hey, he said, where's Lewis? She stood slowly. He called out, heat exhaustion from yesterday. Vince wouldn't let him cool off in the break room, said if he wasn't working, he should clock out. He okay? Barely. I drove him home. What about backup? There is none. Vince said we're leaning into efficiency, which means I'm doing carts, front desk, and helping in the cafe until 2. Harrison exhaled slowly. And the tournament? I sent a text to Vince to remind him. He told me to handle it. When Harrison reached the practice green, a dozen kids were already warming up, all dressed in matching polos. Lacey stood apart from the others, focused on her swing. Her mother sat on a bench nearby, watching quietly. Harrison approached and set down the small staff bag beside her. You Lacey, she gave a curt nod, then looked up. You're my caddy. Just for today, you ready? I've been ready since 6. They walked to the first tee where a volunteer announced the pairings. Lacey's game was fast and precise. She didn't talk much between holes except to ask for distances or confirm wind direction. Harrison kept pace, offering quick feedback when asked. Her mother followed at a distance, silent but watchful. At hole 4, the tournament director, a man named Tallan, stopped them. He wore a blazer with the West Pines logo and carried a clipboard. You're Lacey Fairchild. Yes, she said, not breaking eye contact. He looked over her sheet. You're not assigned a cart. No, Harrison said. She's walking. She's in the wrong division then. All upper-tier girls ride with coaches. She needs to be moved down. Lacey's face hardened. I qualified for this bracket. Tallan shook his head. I don't make the rules, you'll have to step off. Harrison stepped forward. Is this about her not having a cart or not having a private coach? Tallan didn't answer, just tapped his clipboard. This bracket has expectations. That includes formal coaching. She doesn't need a coach, Harrison said. She's one under par through 3 holes. Tallon gave a tight grin. Then she can prove that in the lower bracket. Harrison looked at Lacey's mother, who had stepped closer. Her mouth was pressed into a line. She's not stepping down, the mother said. She earned her spot. Tallon's smile vanished. Then she'll need to leave. We're running on protocol today. Lacey didn't wait. She picked up her bag herself and walked off the green. Harrison followed her to the side. You okay? She shook her head once. I'm used to it. They always say it's the rules. Her mother handed her a towel. You showed them enough. Let's go. Harrison watched them drive off, the girl sitting silently in the front seat, her mother's hand on the wheel. Back inside, Harrison found Tallon near the cafe, eating from a paper tray. You always remove players who don't have private coaches, Tallon shrugged. It's about optics. We get press for these events. Sponsors don't want kids in hand-me-down gear walking around without staff. It looks amateur. You run these tournaments often, every month. Vince wants them bigger, flashier. He's pushing to bring in recruiters next time. Harrison stared at him. Even if that means cutting kids who can actually play, Tallon looked up from his food. We're not a charity. Harrison walked out without another word. By the time he made it back to the Caddy shack, Adrienne was sitting on an overturned bucket, sipping from a water bottle. Her face was flushed. I need a minute before I drop, she said hoarsely. You need more than that, Harrison said. You need help, she laughed once dry. I've been saying that for 6 months. You ever think about quitting? Every day, but I've got a daughter, and this place used to be better. I keep hoping it'll turn around. Harrison squatted beside her, elbows on his knees. Tell me something, he said. If you could change one thing here, just one, what would it be? Adrienne didn't hesitate. Fire Vince. He looked at her. I'm serious, she said. He talks down to customers, ignores safety issues, and pushes people past the breaking point. Staff turnover is insane. We've had 17 people quit since he started. 17. That's not a bad week. That's a cancer. Harrison stood slowly. I'm going to take care of it, he said. She blinked. You? Yeah. Who are you really? He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he walked to the back office where Vince was sitting with his feet on the desk, scrolling through his phone. The lights were off, blinds drawn. You got a second? Harrison asked. Vince didn't look up. Not really. What's your problem? Harrison shut the door behind him. Then he took off the hat, the sunglasses, and peeled off the fake mustache. Vince stared, then leaned forward, squinting. What the hell? I'm Harrison McCaffey, he said. I own this place. Vince stood up fast, knocking his chair back. This is some kind of joke. It's not, and we're done here. You can't fire me without protocol. I just did. Vince's mouth opened, then closed again. You've humiliated veterans, endangered employees, and turned away talented players for not looking the part. You've lied about staffing and manipulated tournaments to favor money over merit. That's not leadership. That's rot. Vince took a step toward the door. You're not to speak to Adrienne or any other staff member on your way out, Harrison said. Security will walk you to your car. You'll regret this, Vince hissed. I already regret hiring you. Vince stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Harrison stood alone in the office, staring at the wall of framed photos, opening days, charity drives, tournament winners. His father was in most of them, always smiling, always shaking hands. He picked up the phone. Adrienne, he said when she answered. I need you in the office. We're going to start fixing this, today. Adrienne entered the office with her sleeves still rolled and a clipboard in hand. She paused when she saw the blinds up, the lights on, and Harrison standing by the window. You actually meant it, she said, watching him. I'm not here for a public gesture. We're rebuilding, but I can't do that unless you're in. She stepped in, closing the door behind her. What do you need? For starters, a full list of names. Staff, part-time, seasonal, everyone. I want roles, hours, and who's actually pulling weight. She nodded, adjusting the pencil behind her ear. I can get that by this afternoon. Good. Also, he said, pointing to a dusty whiteboard in the corner, we're wiping everything. Schedules, goals, even the comp list. We're starting clean. Adrienne moved to the board and began erasing with her sleeve. Her movements were sharp but quiet. You're going to need someone at the front, she said without turning, and someone on carts. We're down to 3 active attendants and 2 are still in high school. I'll cover carts for now, she stopped. You sure? Until we fix the pipeline, yeah. She dropped the rag and turned. You're not what I expected. I didn't expect this either. Outside, the course was filling. Saturday crowds, mostly members, a few guests. Harrison changed into a clean polo, still plain, still anonymous. He worked the carts through lunch, wiping down seats, checking batteries, logging returns. He watched the flow, how players were greeted, where delays stacked up, who got attention and who didn't. Near the turn, a woman in her 60s approached the counter. She wore a navy windbreaker and held a paper voucher. "I'm trying to book the next 3 Tuesdays," she said to the young man behind the desk. "Same group, same time, we already paid for the package." The kid, barely older than 17, fumbled through the system. "I don't see your name." She handed him her card. "It's under Maggie Havorson." "We've been doing this for years." He glanced at the screen, then shook his head. "Doesn't show up, maybe it expired." Harrison stepped beside him. "Let me see." The kid moved aside. Harrison scanned the account. Credits were there, active through December. The problem wasn't the booking. It was the override Vince had set up to block discounted tea times from being used on peak days. "System's fine," Harrison said. "It was just flagged wrong. You're good for Tuesdays." Maggie smiled. "Appreciate it. They told us last week that the senior slot was removed." "Figured it was a mistake." "It was," he said. She nodded and walked off. The kid leaned in. "Am I in trouble?" "No, but don't guess, ask." "It's better for both of us." Later that afternoon, Harrison joined Adrian in the maintenance shed, where she was organizing broken rangefinders and splitting tips between caddies. "I've got something I want you to see," she said, passing him a manila folder. He opened it. Inside were copies of exit forms, 17 of them. Each had handwritten notes: manager favoritism, constant belittling, unsafe in heat. No one listens. "This is what I meant before," Adrian said. "No one quits because they're lazy. They quit because they're invisible." He flipped through silently. One name caught his eye: Lewis. His form had no notes, just a circled checkbox. "Would not recommend this workplace." "You think he'd come back?" Harrison asked. "If you ask him yourself, maybe." He looked up. "Give me his number." That evening, Harrison sat in a folding chair behind the pro shop, dialing. The phone rang twice before picking up. "Yeah, Lewis," Harrison said. "This is Harrison McCaffey. I'm calling about West Pines." A pause. "You the guy who owns it?" "I am. Didn't think you'd call me direct. I want to ask you something, straight up." "Go ahead." "If you had a clean slate, new management, proper breaks, and real support, would you work carts again?" Another pause. "I didn't leave because I hated the job," Lewis said. "I left because I passed out next to a cooler and no one even noticed. You'd never be ignored again." "You serious?" "I'm sitting here in the dark in a metal chair to make this call. That's serious enough," Lewis exhaled. "I'll come in Monday." "But I'm not starting if nothing's changed." "It already has." Back inside, Adrian was updating the employee board by hand. She'd crossed out old names and penciled in new ones. She'd also added symbols, stars for reliable, triangles for new hires, dashes beside pending interviews. "There's something else," she said, tapping a name. "Tallen." Harrison's jaw tightened. "What about him?" "He's still trying to run the tournament calendar. Sent out a mass email this morning announcing a new junior league. Same rules. Invitation only. Private coaches required." "I told him to cancel that bracket." He ignored it. Harrison didn't wait. He walked through the clubhouse, past golfers finishing their rounds, and into the side lounge where Tallen often set up during events. Sure enough, he was there, typing on a laptop, a half-empty soda beside him. "You sent out a new tournament invite," Harrison said. Tallen didn't look up. "It's scheduled. I've got commitments to vendors." "You're not holding that event." "I've already got parents emailing." "Too late to pull it. You pulled a 13-year-old out of competition mid-round because she didn't have a private coach. That's not against policy." "It is now." Tallen leaned back, finally meeting Harrison's eyes. "You're overcorrecting. You'll lose the wealthier families. If they only show up for exclusivity, they can play somewhere else." Tallen scoffed. "You're going to tank junior revenue for what? A feel-good story. I'm going to create a space where talent matters more than optics." "And you're not part of it." Tallen sat forward. "You're firing me. You removed a player based on appearance and access. That's discrimination. You knew it and you did it anyway." I was following precedent. No, you were gatekeeping. Harrison stepped aside. Hand over your keys. Tallon slammed his laptop shut and stood. You'll regret this when no one shows up for your charity tourneys. Harrison didn't answer. He waited until Tallon left the room, then picked up the soda can and dropped it in the bin. Outside, the light was fading. Adrian met him near the practice green. That makes 2, she said. I don't care how many it takes. We're not running on fear anymore. She looked toward the path where the kids had played earlier. We still have 1 bracket left this month. You want to reform at it. Open enrollment. Skill-based, no outside coaches required, she smiled. You just gave half the county a shot they never had. No, he said. They already earned it. I'm just getting out of the way. By Monday morning, the tone at West Pines had shifted, but not quietly. Word of Vince's firing had moved through the staff faster than any memo ever could. Some were cautious, waiting to see what came next. Others, especially the long-time employees, walked in with a straighter back, but no one was celebrating. There was too much to fix. The staff meeting started at 6:30 a.m. sharp in the lounge, the same room where tournament schedules used to be handed down without discussion. Now the chairs were rearranged into a circle, no podium, no one standing above the rest. Harrison wore a plain gray polo and khakis. Adrian stood beside him with a legal pad and a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Thanks for coming in early, Harrison began. Some of you know who I am, some don't. I'm Harrison McCaffey, I own West Pines, and I owe you an apology. No one interrupted. A few employees shifted in their seats, but most just listened. I let distance and reports replace presence and responsibility, and while I was gone, things got worse here because I wasn't watching. He paused. That ends today. A maintenance tech named Greta, who had been with the course since her 20s, raised her hand. Are we actually allowed to say what's wrong now, or do we just pretend everything's fine like before? You can say anything, Harrison said. That's why we're here, she crossed her arms. Then why are we expected to cover 2 buildings with 1 mower and no shade in 90-degree heat? Harrison turned to Adrian. She flipped a page on her pad. I logged the equipment status over the weekend. Of our 6 machines, 3 are down. 1's been broken for over a year, Greta added, and the mechanic was let go last fall. No replacement. Harrison looked around the circle. We fixed that. Starting today, we bring in a mobile repair contractor. You'll have working machines by end of week. A young server named Paige spoke up next. What about food comps? We were told not to give water to guests unless they paid for it, even if it was over 90 outside. That policy's gone, Harrison said. If someone needs water, they get water. Period. Lewis, standing near the back with a ball cap pulled low, raised his hand. You still want me on carts, Harrison nodded. I do, but not alone. Adrian stepped in. We're interviewing 2 part-timers this week. Until then, I'll rotate shifts with you. No one's doing it solo anymore. Lewis gave a tight nod. He didn't say thank you, he didn't need to. When the meeting broke, people didn't rush out. They lingered. They talked real conversations, not whispered complaints. Harrison stayed behind, gathering the chairs with Adrian. You did it, she said quietly. No, he replied. We just started. The first order of the day was the senior tea time block. Harrison had reinstated it over the weekend, sent out direct mailers himself. By 10 a.m., half the regulars were back, Mr. Carter among them. He arrived in a spotless collared shirt, his clubs freshly cleaned. Harrison met him at the path. Morning, Carter said, then stopped. You're not the same kid from last week. I am, Harrison said. Without the disguise, Carter tilted his head. You're the owner. I am. For a moment, Carter didn't speak, then he gave a single nod. You should have done this sooner. You're right, but I'm here now. Carter set his bag down. You walking with me again? Not today, but I made sure your usual caddy's back on rotation. The older man glanced toward the clubhouse. Heard you got rid of the loudmouth. I did. Permanently? Carter gave a small grunt of approval. Then maybe I'll stick around another season. By midweek, the course's operations were stabilizing but slowly. Harrison spent each day moving between departments. He helped unload deliveries in the cafe, rode shotgun with the grounds crew through the back 9, and sat in on the redesigned Junior League prep meetings. The next tournament was now open enrollment, based solely on skill level. No fees for entry. no requirements for outside coaches. Word spread fast. On Thursday afternoon, Lacey and her mother returned. They walked into the pro shop quietly, no fanfare. Adrian greeted them at the counter. "Got your name on the bracket already," she told Lacey. "You're in the top group." Lacey glanced at her mother, then back. "Seriously?" Harrison stepped out from the back room. "It's your bracket now. No one's pulling you out of it." Lacey looked down, then raised her eyes again. "I've been practicing every day. Don't stop." Her mother reached across the counter. "Thank you," she said. Harrison nodded. "Just make sure she brings the same swing we saw last time." That Saturday, the tournament ran without a hitch. Kids of varying backgrounds and abilities filled the course. Some wore brand new gear. Others played with borrowed clubs. It didn't matter. What mattered was how they played. Lacey finished second overall. Her final putt dropped clean, and she didn't look surprised, just satisfied. That night, Harrison walked the grounds alone. The last carts had been stored, the cafe cleaned, the lights in the clubhouse dimmed. He paused near the first tee where the breeze cut across the fairway. Adrian joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Still think it's fixable?" she asked. Harrison took one of the cups. "I don't think." "I know." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the moonlight stretch across the green. "You ever think about staying more involved?" she asked. "I've already made the call to corporate. I'm pulling out of day-to-day at the other locations. West Pines gets my focus." "Full time," she raised her cup. "To rebuilding, to earning it," Harrison said. In the weeks that followed, things didn't become perfect, but they became better. The staff meetings stayed open. Equipment got fixed. Employee turnover slowed. And for the first time in a long while, people didn't just work at West Pines, they belonged there. And Harrison never wore the mustache again. He didn't need to.